And thank you for the invitation. I share my screen now. Let me share. And welcome to everyone. So my presentation is exactly this. So about the introduction of artificial intelligence inside of the drafting legislation lawmaking process. And let me start with the evolution of these techniques over the last 30 years. So artificial intelligence law community developed the very relevant outputs in this domain of the digital transformation, starting with the introduction of open standards, XML, modelization of the legislation of the Gazette, and moving to the extracted data and serialize it in open data, and then to manage the workflow of the lawmaking system. And now we are assisting to emerging technologies concerning legal data analytics, data science, and artificial intelligence, and also smart contracts. But we are ready to do so. But in the meantime, we need also to pay attention to some issues that I want to present. First of all, for instance, when we apply machine learning to the legal domain, we needed to pay attention to not neglect the structure of the document, because legal document is per se a very important part of the culture of a legal system. So extract data is not enough. We needed to connect this information and analysis inside of a structure, like connect obligation to exception or duty and penalties. Also, the context is super important, and machine learning alone, working on the plain text, time to time is not working with a good context metadata. And it's so important also to integrate jurisdiction information, temporal information when the document is valid, and to add the context is very important. And also to balance in a good way past a series of data with a new brilliant initiative or brilliant law that are emerging, very new, because the predictive algorithms are based on the past. And so we risk to not emphasize in a right way the new introduction of the legislation. And also another point is concerning the citation. Citations are very important in legal drafting technique. But machine learning can understand in deep the meaningful of the citation. And so we need to navigate the citation to extract the information of the destination of the document and to introduce inside of the analysis. And also the versioning over the time is super important, because Article 3 is a string of characters, but over the time, Article 3 change the content and the meaning. So these kind of risks are very well known nowadays in our projects. And for this reason, recently is emerging a new approach called hybrid AI, especially in the legal domain, in order to combine together different kind of technology in order to mitigate some risks coming from especially one single technique, like non-symbolic artificial intelligence, like deep learning. And so you can see in this slide the possibility to start from the document-driven approach using a command torso, using XML, in order to provide the context and the metadata, semantic web annotation, and using data science for integrating what artificial intelligence alone can't provide, and obviously all the other techniques integrated together. Accomantoso is playing a very important role in this picture, because we can use open standard XML based on the document annotation like Accomantoso for creating a skeleton, very important for providing transparency and accountability, and so to create the environment for a white box and not a black box of artificial intelligence. And our approach is not rules-based, but law as a platform-based. So in the bottom, you can see we create a structure of a commentoso, and on the top, we can extract a legal knowledge using artificial intelligence. And on the top of these, we put also ontology of the semantic web for creating the necessary meaningful information, and also workflow metadata in order to integrate the life cycle of all the legislative documents and the parliamentary documents involved in the lawmaking process. And on the top of these amazing documentation information and data information, we can develop artificial intelligence services for offering to the member parliaments or other servant important support system. And finally, we wanted to create the correct communication with the end user, with a good visualization, portal, infographics, and in general, using the so-called legal design in order to create a correct communication of the legal message. In the last year, I faced a project with the European Commission called Drafting Legislation in the Era of Artificial Intelligence and Digitalization. And we detected with the European Commission in very long process of focus group with the stakeholders, three main areas of intervention of artificial intelligence and legislative process. First of all, we can support legal drafting. So during the creation of the bill and the parliamentary documents. The second area is a decision support system in order to favor the making process, the decision-making process, like the analysis of ex ante or ex post, or to support the application of some policies. And finally, the last area of intervention that we have detected is to apply artificial intelligence for analyzing the legal order as a whole system, and to detect hidden information, hidden knowledge, like frequent errors or patterns, or very qualified information that are necessary for taking decision. And we developed 4 use cases on the basis of this analysis. First, in the first case, we analyzed core agenda, and we use deep learning supervised for classify the typology of a core agenda. And we discovered some important information in order to help the publication office or also the legislator to avoid some mistakes and to reduce the core agenda. And we also detected the fact that the core agenda are mostly in the area of standards, formula, mathematical formula, chemical formula. So in this way, we can reinforce the editors, the tools in this area of tables, of mathematical formulas in order to reduce these kind of errors and core agenda. The second use case was focused to detect semi-automatically derogations. Derogation is an exception of the main rule, and we have many of derogation in our legal system, and so the lawyer is struggling to detect this derogation, the conditions, and the temporal parameters, and extracting with artificial intelligence these elements, we can serialize in a commentoso and put in a good format and offer to the lawyers or to the, in general, also legislature, in a very good presentation in a network, when you can see that in the bubble is a main law and the constellation are the derogation, and we can also present the condition when and in which cases these derogations are valid. So clicking on one bubble, I can navigate all the derogation in one shot, and so I can also take some decisions. The third use case was dedicated to analyze the language and of the legislation of the bill, and to discover if the bill is in line with some policy. defined by the European Commission, like digital ready language, in order to manage the digital transformation and to avoid very old-fashioned words that are recalling a paperwork and not a digitalization. So we have analyzed the language, and we have created index in order to analyze, and you can see that there is an analysis of the last 10 years of European legislation, and in the negative index means that the bill and the law there are negative words, and in the part of the positive index means that the bill of the law is quite good. And also we measure also the propagation of these with the citation, because the law is full of citations. So we need to extend our analysis, not limited to the bill and the document, but also to extend it to the citation and the propagation to the external documents. And finally, the fourth case was dedicated to measure the similarity between the implementation of the directive in one member state and the original European directive, and to measure how much the implementation in the domestic law respect is in line with the European directive or the European policy. And you can see in one column, you find articles of the member states. In another column, you can see the article of the directive, and in the middle, the index of similarity and the connection that can check if the implementation is in line with the European policy. The conclusion of our work is the following. So we use a hybrid AI for mitigating some risk, especially detected in legal domain. We use a common torso as a basic framework, a ground for permitting transparency and accountability in the legislation, digitalization. And we use this explicable AI for creating trustworthy and preserving democratic pillar in the whole lawmaking process. And finally, human in command is implemented applying a human-centered artificial intelligence and using very good communication canonic standards like legal design visualization. Thank you so much.